So what if you could, create a world and make it come to life? What if it would really just like pop, right? How does that come across? Make it unique, interactive, hopefully fun. That would be really the key thing here. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about what is vibe coding. We're going to go through the key production stages in video game development. And we're going to have some key takeaways that hopefully you guys will all learn from. And then you can sort of wrap up and take any questions. So to kick off, I guess, to give you a bit of background, I've been in the space in game development now for the better part of 20 years. I've been doing games at Sumo, Microsoft, MetaGravity. These are open world games, racing games, social games, sports games, so a lot of different things. I'm an avid bubbler and no-code developer also. Some of you I know in the bleachers are familiar with me coming in and solving hard problems in the community. I am from Belgium, so yay Belgium for those who are from Belgium. And yeah, a couple of random facts for you to get to know me and hopefully come and ask me some questions at the end. So, what is vibe coding? Well, really it's focusing on the intent of what you want to do rather than how it's being done, right? So the fact that it's coding doesn't actually matter. It's the aim that you are trying to get an experience out there and you're trying to craft this experience into something that's interesting. Now, that reminds me of no code. And really what happens is that you describe what you want. Your AI is going to go and create the code that's going to generate theoretically what you want, and what you want is going to be the hard bit here. You're going to go into a phase of testing and refining this code, and then you're just iterating on that, and that's the loop that you are in, effectively. Now, hopefully, this gets you to a point where you can create games, but the dream is creating something fun, maybe like this little game. I actually got caught by this thumbnail because I thought somebody had actually built a little game with a monster truck on an island. It wasn't the case. So this is some of the pitfalls that we're going to talk about. But really the dream is that you can come up with a concept. It's going to be fun and interesting and playable in a short amount of time because you're just plugging away at it. But having spent some time in this space, games are hard. Like really, really, really hard. And to give you some context around this, one of the things that is hard is cost. Cost of making games is prohibitively, astronomically hard today in terms of raising capital to be able to try things out, right? This is why vibe coding is interesting. It's because you actually get to create something faster without having to raise such capital. Asset creation, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is also very, very hard. You're looking at the big games like Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever. These have like thousands of people working on creating these worlds and crafting the 3D around these worlds. Prototyping, actually developing and trying to get something fun. That is really, really hard. This is where vibe coding is excelling, and we'll get to see how we can work with that. So, what else is hard? Debugging. If you've ever worked on a game or ever worked on a project, you have an idea of like how hard debugging and painful that is. It's about 1,000x on video games because you're creating all these different edge cases that are far more challenging to solve than what you typically have in a website or debugging an API. Performance. Now, standard games are running at 30 to 60 frames per second. If you're not hitting that, especially for racing games, you're not going to have a smooth experience. You're not going to have something that's really interesting. It's going to feel laggy. It's going to feel unresponsive. It takes away the fun. And that's going to be penalizing for you in the future. And actually, just finding it fun. It's really, really difficult to find fun. This is actually one of the hardest problems that game developers spend their time on is how do you make an experience really captivating and entertaining? And what is fun? Fun to me is different fun to you. I was thinking about a different analogy of this. Not everybody enjoys meat, right? So you have some people that just go, no, meat's not for me. Well, some people love meat and will go to a barbecue and enjoy that. Those kind of things, you've got to think about these parallels. And fun is something very subjective. But with vibe coding, this is actually something that we can really prototype and test out. So when you think about the production processes of games, they're very, very complex. Like, this is just a simplistic example of some of the core phases and steps that you get into a production process on games. I've built some of these in the past. I know how difficult it is. And a lot of time you are going from a conceptual idea into production slowly because you have such a mountain of work to get a game out. And once you've built the game into a production phase, actually stabilizing it and debugging it to create a polished experience is really, really, really time consuming. So these kind of processes are both a challenge today because this is the meat that is really hard to solve, but this is also where the opportunity is because across these pipelines, opportunity for no code, for tools, for optimizations, and this is where vibe coding is actually now starting to hit some really interesting trend. So if we look at the one of the phases as concepting, we can look at creating really new, interesting ways of conceptualizing your idea. So a lot of time, if you want to make a new video game, you have to come up with some way of going, hey, I want to have a character that is going to have a magical sword or run around in this mystical world. And that's quite hard to convey. If you read a book, everybody's got a different interpretation of how the characters look or the world. And so what you have today is the ability to go and say to an AI and prompt it with a prompt similar to this, for example, that will get you an output like that and actually start giving you something interesting. That starts anchoring a lot more of the work together into something that can be discussed and unified, and maybe we can come up with a way of showing how the world works, right? So if we look at this from a practical perspective, and we'll get into that in a second. I'll just load up Midjourney so that we can look into this. So yesterday I did some prompting around this. You can create, little banners for different games. Like if you had a Call of Duty, you'd come up with this kind of experience. Here you can see the details. You can start to see some of the UI, the user interface that comes to life. And you can say, oh, okay, maybe like we want it to be a lighter mood, a different mood. These are the kind of things that you can play around with. So this used to take an army of concept artists to go and create. Now I can just prompt it into existence and poof, it exists. And why is this important? Is because in the creation process of a game, you have to conceptualize what you're trying to do, right? And try and come up with some plan to make it happen. So video concepts are a great way to move forward. And if you don't know how to prompt this, you can use things like Prompt Catalyst that will actually help you prompt and create the right prompt. Now, there's loads of different ways to do prompt engineering. That's for a separate talk, but feel free to ask me about that later. Now, I took a different approach in terms of how to create things, is to look at how I can use and create different assets, right? So actually I went into a bit of a rabbit hole with GPT, and I did see that somebody had used it to create better drawings of their kids' drawings in the beginning. So I just did this for fun. I used GPT to take this drawing of a bird, transform it into a concept art to get me a bit of an extra step forward to say, hey, is this the kind of thing that I want to have in my world? And then I turned it into a 3D model using a tool called CSM. And then I animated it into existence using a tool called Anything World. Now, what's the result of this? Well, if you take different concepts, you can take like a little drawing like this, and it will turn it into a scary monster, or a bird, turn it into another bird, a teacup, a nice cute little teacup, and GPT will, spit this stuff out for you. At this point, my daughter wanted a really scary teacup, so we went down that rabbit hole. I didn't animate this for anybody, but what happens is that you can then bring it into tools like CSM, and create your 3D model, which is kind of a step forward and brings it to life. Now, this is kind of an okay representation, and then I sort of animated it. And this is an automatic animation process. So as you see, it's a bit rough. If I'm doing like different animations for it, it's going to load let's do the running one. Is that what I want? No. So I have to go back and tweak these things and go and use that. But in the past, this would have taken me like hours of animation with learning different tools to be able to do this, right? So we're now at a point where the asset creation process is also ready, okay? So what does that mean? That means that we can go into creating more concepts and more art faster, using, for example, different schemas like this. And if you do this process, as I've just shown you, it's kind of quite fast, really, but it's quite error prone. If you noticed, there are two lips, or two tongues, I guess, on my bird. On other models, you see these bugs around the face, stretching of the textures. These are things that we would have to fix in post-production, but we would never have these bugs in the beginning if we were just doing it manually. So these are the kind of things that you have to look out for. So you always have to like prepare your assets and make sure that you're really working with some consistency here. Obviously, my little rubbish drawings are not the best efforts at trying to convey my idea, but like it's a start. Consistency and quality is going to be your key challenge here when you're trying to use something like AI tools to build assets for you. So you need to really practice with this. And you've got to really understand the pipelines. I knew how to do some of the animation processes, but if you didn't know that you had to go through those steps, it's a lot of learning that you've got to understand. 3D assets tend to come to life, tends to take a lot to get to life in terms of rigging, bones, animation, that sort of thing. So you've just got to start paying attention to this. But now we get to the fun bit, which is prototyping, which really all started off with Peter Levels' Fly demo, which, has anybody actually played this? No? Yeah, 1, 2, okay. I'll show it to you for a split second. I have mixed feelings about this project, mostly because I'm coming from a gaming background. Now, as you'll see here, you'll see that there is a frames per second counter, which is running at 60, which is good. In most cases, that will drop down to 8, 5, 3, if there's more players, and this is part of the problems that you're going to have. So what is this experience? It is a flight simulator, which is kind of fun, but I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? They've changed the map again. Gaining some altitude, but there's no collisions. I'm just going to turn this down. There's no collisions with other planes. It's a okay experience, and Peter Levels is joyfully claiming, he's getting $15,000 a month from this. That may have been the case at the beginning. It certainly isn't the case. There's 33 players online. You're not getting 15,000 a month from that. And the reason why is because it's not solving some of the key problems in games, which is the stickiness of your experience. And that is why finding the fun is really still hard, right? I can create a little flight simulator, and that's great, but actually I need to do more. So we're really at the early stages of like the arcade days, right? Some of you are a bit too young to remember good old school arcade machines, but for the older folk like me, this used to have like very simple visuals and good experiences. If I look back at other parallels, this is a very old school game, but it's Quake 1. The reason why I use Quake 1 is because it's one of the early first-person shooters. I think we're at this stage, potentially, of experience, but you've got to go to Quake 2 and then to Quake 3. And really, that is like a 26-year gap that happened in game development. Quake 3 was probably one of the beginnings of a modern era shooter that you have today. So we're trying to bridge this gap into something a lot more compressed in terms of time frame. Really, we're probably still at this stage of development. So this is what we call gray and white, or white boxing. It's when we prototype a lot of the environments and the experience. So if you know Uncharted 4, which was a very popular PlayStation game, you will see that the worlds are first created in these very simplistic designs. Why? Because you're just trying to iterate on the prototyping of the fun, of the movement, of what is the action, how does it work? And that takes a lot of time. And I think we're sort of at this stage, right? So when you're looking at prototyping, what are some of the best places to go and do that? Well, you'll get a lot of people recommending Lovable, Cursor, Windsurf. This is fine, but it's still a level too close to the code for a lot of people, I think. So I'd recommend something like Rosebud. So when we look at this, I'm going to try and prompt now the creation of a racing game. I like racing games. It's simple. It's quite obvious how it works. So I've got a little prompt here. Create a simple racing game. Drift mechanic is at its core, cartoon-like polygonal world, and some dynamics around what should be happening with the camera and these kind of things. You can go and play around with other tools and other projects out here, but as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here. It's great for learning, maybe less to actually create a real quote-unquote game. All right, so let's see what it's going to come up with. Hopefully it's going to give me the same result that I had yesterday, and we're going to be fine. But I think it's going to start to show you what kind of challenges you're going to be faced with when you're looking at coding this. Now, while this is going on, what you'll notice is that there's a tab for assets and code. So great, you can go into the code and you can start playing around with that, which is good to tweak the values. Assets is where you'll be able to upload some of the content that you created yourself using the pipelines that I showed you beforehand, right? So this is where things are starting to tie together. It's doing a bunch of fun stuff. For those that want to understand a more technical background as to what it's doing, it's using a JavaScript library called 3.js, and basically using that to create the worlds. Now, 3.js is a very quote-unquote simplistic 3D library. It does enough that you can create simple games like Fly and other projects, but it doesn't match what you get with Unreal and Unity and those kind of games, right? So it's hopefully getting there. You will see at some point, or I think it's this button here, where you can connect to your project to Supabase. Now, a lot of times when you're developing games, you're going to be using big fat database somewhere. Hey, I've got my game. So this actually gave me a different result, which is interesting. So I've got my little racer. I can already see that I'm pressing. It's taking me 2-3 seconds to get to speed. Doesn't feel like I'm racing. Feels like I'm driving some sort of very slow hog, and the acceleration is not very, very fast. I want to basically be able to tweak that. I also have a lack of shadows. My camera's doing all sorts of things. So here I'm going to say increase the top speed of the car to 250. Blink. Now, this is some of the side of it where you can go, okay, well, that should just be a quick variable that I just change in the database, press refresh, and off I go, right? Here I'm just prompting it into existence. And now it's getting there and it didn't do what I wanted it to do. And I go, okay, well, now why did it do that, right? So this is part of the challenges that you now have to go and go and figure out. And in an ideal world, and I'm not paying for this right now, so I can't go into the code and actually debug it, you can just sort of iterate on this and figure out what's going on with the car. Which will probably be something around update the speed value max to 250. Let's see if that works. Might work, might not work. pretty simple prompt, so it should be pretty decent. Now, one of the benefits of Rosebud is that it is it's one of the better integrated tools in terms of managing your whole stack. Whereas if you're using Cursor, if you're using Lovable and all that, you're going to have to manage that a bit more. You have to go into Cursor rules. You have to apply this sort of stuff. It gets focus, and it still didn't do that. So the joy of vibe coding, now I can go backwards faster than I can go forwards. So this is always fun. So as a live demo, it's always different than what you did last night. So if I do it the other way around, I'm going to go and log out and show you my other demo. Yeah, there you go. So this was the one that I did yesterday, which was a lot faster, as you can imagine. As you can see, I added a bit more of the UI, the interaction. Now this started off from the same prompt, so you already see the two differences in terms of how your prompts are impacted. What you can also notice is that the wheels are doing something really crazy. So you've got to go and figure out what's happening there. I'm not entirely sure what is going on with the wheels. And my map has disappeared now because my map is too small. So vibe coding your way through this is okay, but you're actually not going to change. You're not going to change the core principles of having to deal with understanding how to build games, and that's some of the challenges that you have. A couple of takeaways: trial and error. Whether you're building games in a normal way or through vibe coding, still going to be the thing to do. That's normal. I would work on defining the systems first. So what is the world, the parameters of the world? And then basically developing your idea some more and working on that and moving that across to Unreal or Unity. So in production, you can take these projects from a workflow of Rosebud into Unity and then probably spend it and increase it in terms of quality in other projects. But you can see the evolution of that is quite a hardcore evolution. So on that one, I would say always plan your projects. That's not going to go away. And if you look at how you're doing vibe coding today, it's a lot of project management first. AI isn't copyrightable in the US. So your content, if you're trying to sell it, somebody can just rip it off. Poof, your brand IP is gone. So you can't actually sell that really well. So for games, that's kind of important. And the traditional game engines like Unity and Unreal are actually upgrading. Let me just get rid of that. So you're actually going to get into better space. So what I'm looking at now is there's a couple of trends here and a couple of predictions that I have. Mostly that your browser-based experiences will get better over time, but we're still in the old arcade days of that experience. So measure that in terms of what you want to be able to do. I think vibe coding is probably going to slow down heavily in terms of video games just because it's hard. And I think people are not going to get the quality out of it. There'll still be some outliers. Some will make money, but you have to think about the amount of noise that you have in terms of mobile games out there and how hard it is to penetrate that market. That's no different in terms of the vibe coded projects that you have. So thanks for vibing with me. Thanks for this lovely afternoon. Feel free to come and talk to me about all these different topics or to come and find me online. I hope this was fun. I have left a couple of things in the appendix of this project, but that was vibe coding for you today in video games.